to start? Thank you. I'd like to call the meeting to order of the Barrie Service Board for May the 19th. Welcome those that may be watching us live or watching us later on. I'd like to begin our meeting with a land acknowledgement in keeping with Indigenous protocol and building respectful relations between Indigenous and non-Indigenous peoples in Canada. It is customary to acknowledge the traditional territories and ancestral lands of our Indigenous peoples. We would like to acknowledge this sacred land on which the Barrie Emergency Service Campus operates. It has been the site for human activity for 15,000 years. This land is the ancestral land of the Huron-Wendat and Anishinaabe Nation. The treaty that was signed for this particular parcel of land is collectively referred to as the Williams Treaty. We are dedicated to honoring Indigenous history and culture. We also recognize the enduring presence of Indigenous peoples on this land and are committed to moving forward in the spirit of reconciliation and respect. Thank you. The agenda was submitted in advance. A motion to approve today's agenda. Mr. Khan? Councilor Thompson? Any amendments or changes to it or questions with respect to the agenda? Seeing none, all those in favor? Thank you. Any conflicts of interest the members have with respect to the agenda? Seeing none. Also included in advance was our minutes of our April 21st, 2022 meeting. A motion to approve those minutes. Mr. Khan, seconded. Ms. Ron, any amendments, changes, questions with respect to the minutes? Seeing none, all those in favor? Thank you. Chief, do you want to introduce the team with respect to our systemic review, please?
Thank you very much, Chair. This afternoon, we will be hearing an update in regards to our systemic review under the tutelage of Inspector Burke, who I will call to the podium, and he will introduce members of the executive services area within our organization, and you have heard from many of them in the past. Inspector Burke.
Thanks, Chief. Thank you, Chair. As we did, we committed when we presented the findings from the systemic review back in November. We committed that we come back to the board to give you an updated progress report for that. So that's exactly what we're going to do today. Staff Sergeant Linda Morehouse, Victoria Tumlowitz from the planning office. You know them well. They've put a lot of effort into this. Certainly following a number of initiatives for that. We've accomplished a lot. A lot is in progress, and we still have a lot to accomplish. Just to put it in a nutshell for that, but what I'll do is I'll call Linda up here and allow her to present some details, and then certainly be open for questions after the presentation. Thanks.
Thanks, Inspector. Thanks, everybody. Nice to see you again. Okay, so as Inspector Burke said, today we're going to review the progress of the implementation of the recommendations from the Barrie Police Service Systemic Review of Organizational Culture and Processes. As you may remember, our review started in July 2020 and included an assessment of the Barrie Police Service organizational culture, practices, and procedures. The review was guided by 8 specific goals and aimed to identify any areas of improvement or success regarding response, processes, and engagement with racialized groups and vulnerable populations. Throughout this process, data was collected both quantitatively and qualitatively, and included an evaluation of several different areas within the service. The report was completed in 4 phases and provides a comprehensive overview of findings by the systemic review. It was presented to the Barrie Police Services Board and the public on November 18, 2021. You'll note that equity, diversity, and inclusion is frequently referenced in action items. This speaks to a changing police culture, not just in this organization, but across the province and indeed the country. The task of gathering, reviewing, interpreting, and collating all information was a significant undertaking for the service. Research methods included an analysis of data, environmental scans, internal and external focus groups, interviews, and surveys, and third-party consultations with subject matter experts. The systemic review evaluated internal procedures, board policies, recruitment and retention practices, in-house training material, reference from professional standards, communication practices, promotional processes and practices, and other examples as noted on the slide. Data collected through the systemic review identified 32 recommendations and 11 sub-recommendations that align with 5 key organizational themes. These are leadership, culture, organizational disconnect, maturity, and reputation. When reviewing these recommendations, it was determined that specific areas of the service would be required to oversee the development, launch, and monitoring of each recommendation. These areas are the leadership team, the Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion Committee, executive services, human resources, operational support, and the BPS membership. In the next few slides, we will review the actions that have been completed, are in progress, or are about to start. Beginning with organizational leadership. 6 recommendations and 3 sub-recommendations address concerns of internal systemic barriers regarding leadership roles. Internal systems, practices, requirements, and culture were examined to determine and reduce barriers for inclusion of all demographic groups in leadership roles. Currently, the service has completed a full review of all Barrie Police procedures and board policies through an equitable lens, implemented an internal equity, diversity, and inclusion survey, distributed a 2022 strategic planning survey, and completed an intercultural development inventory assessment of Barrie Police members. An external community advisory group is in the process of being established to help serve as a source of input for the Barrie Police leadership team regarding decisions, projects, and initiatives. Similarly, an internal Barrie Police member working group is being formed. This group will focus on internal culture. And within 1 week of posting the working group, over 20 members have already replied. Another area of organizational leadership that continues to advance is the creation of professional development opportunities for all members of the service. These include information sessions that explore cultural awareness, equity, inclusion, and approaches for managing unconscious bias. The theme of organizational culture examined both formal and informal aspects and resulted in 13 recommendations and 7 sub-recommendations. Formal organizational culture is established through policies and operating procedures. Informal organizational culture reviews the day-to-day experiences of members. Completed actions include application of an equitable lens and AOTA compliance of all publication reports. An internal and external communication framework was created and will be implemented in the coming months, starting with the launch of an internal systemic review online portal. This portal will serve as a digital repository for members to review progress and updates regarding the systemic review recommendations. Barrie Police has conducted internal employee surveys around engagement, morale, demographics, and identity differences. This was achieved through the launch of an internal EDI-specific survey. Baseline measures were established and will be reassessed annually. The service continues to work on establishing a policy and procedure workflow process, recruitment fairs with underrepresented demographic groups, improved internal member reporting systems, including the rewriting of our equal opportunity discrimination and workplace harassment prevention policy, a career matrix specific to Barrie Police members, advanced EDI-focused development programs and communications, and strengthened organizational assessment tools. The third theme of organizational disconnect has 3 recommendations and relates to member and leader perceptions and addresses opportunities for strengthened internal communication. Areas that are in progress include establishing scheduled reviews of member wellness and existing initiatives, continued provision of professional development resources that enhance communication, and the service continues to explore opportunities to gather feedback from members through roundtable discussions with Chief Greenwood and assessment tools. For the theme of organizational maturity, it was found there is a need to focus on diversity training and resources. There are 5 recommendations with actions already completed or in progress. These include assessments of diversity training needs for new recruits and existing members, exploring new methods to increase and strengthen EDI training for all members, and leveraging the EDI committee to review new opportunities for education based on results of the annual EDI survey. The service will continue to explore means of gathering internal and external race-based statistics and implement collaborative initiatives that help determine and evolve the maturity and intercultural competence of members. The fifth theme is reputation and has 5 recommendations and 1 sub-recommendation to address the service's collaborative partnerships, member resources, and strengthen community policing and diversity relations. Already in progress are centralized online resources that are frequently monitored and updated, including the strategic planning portal, the EDI information portal, and the new systemic review portal. Fostering new partnerships through active participation in the City of Barrie's Community Safety and Wellbeing Plan, and the allocation of increased funding, people, and resources to community policing through the launch of the Community Safety Wellbeing Teams and evidence-based policing research initiatives, and ongoing assessment of a dedicated diversity and inclusion position. As these actions evolve, the service will begin the development of performance metrics to evaluate members' soft skills and explore community policing as a criterion for promotion. The deliverables of the systemic review help strengthen the service as a whole to ensure a safe and secure community. Barrie police leaders must be agents of change and be engaged with this process. Members and those within the local community who volunteered their time to help the Barrie police conduct the systemic review and analyze findings have been heard, and as we continue to update actions, further progress reports will be provided. At this time, I wish to thank you, and we'll take any questions.
Questions for staff, sorry. Mr. Khan, please.
Thank you very much, and thank you for the presentation. I'm happy about my takeaway from reading in your presentation regarding the level of enthusiasm by members to participate. A number that you pointed out were actively volunteering to, I think you said the number of 20 or something like that, to participate in some subgroups, but as well as some comment, whether it's today or previously, that you'd mentioned around awareness that certainly with regard to certain subject matter, the want of anonymous reporting, anonymous feedback providing. So how are you balancing that? How are you finding the ability to collect the right information from your members where they're feeling confident to share that, especially on certain sensitive subject matter?
So again, we regularly, I think we regularly leverage our surveys that we put out for that. It gives a level of anonymity, and we encourage honesty within that. And that's one of our main drivers for collecting that information. And again, going back to the working group that we presented, it's actually been only 5 days that we've had it out. That's because we put it out at the end of last week, and we've got 21 members. We got all the emails that come from me, so it's actually 21. So I think that shows a level of participation. A number of those members, and now this is it's civilians that have applied for special constables, and we've also got sworn members, both NCO and constable level. So it's a very good cross section. A number that have actually come to my office to inquire about, how they can help, what to expect, and looking forward to participating and actually helping the service is really the message for that. So that's how I think we're working on the lines of communication. I think they're open. I think members are much more comfortable now that we went through the systemic review, and we're moving on with some of the recommendations that they see. So I think that gives them confidence that we hope to be honest with us and have some honest open.
So that trust is contagious?
We're hoping that. We're certainly hoping that. I mean, the participation level through our surveys and in that committee, I think that demonstrates that there is a desire of the members of the service, and that's a cross section. That's we're not just focusing on sworn members. This is a lot of civilians that want to be involved.
Great. Thank you very much.
As well as, with the survey feedback that we get, we're always, listen to feedback and adapt to suggestions that are made with respect to, anonymity. Got it. Some suggestions have been made in the past about how we can protect that better, and we've certainly taken those suggestions into consideration when we revise and update surveys that are coming in the future. So So I think that again will show that we listen, we respect the suggestions, because we want to build that trust and we want that two-way communication.
Thanks for the great work. Appreciate it.
Can you just explain or just tell us the process for recruiting for the external group?
Oh, I mean, the one area that we actually linked into was the actual, the anti-racism committee that was established actually by the city. Through the chief, through her membership on that, we actually were invited to present to them, and I was actually Linda and Victoria. Once again, I went to basically present on our EDI initiatives for that. Out of that presentation, Linda has made actually contact with members of that committee who want to assist us in getting into the diverse communities that we have trouble reaching. They want to actually bridge us into that. So that is certainly one area where for the external portion. And at the planning committee, I'll just give the example of the community organizations, the panel that we had right there, and the enthusiasm that they presented about wanting to work with us and to continue to work with us and to build that relationship. So
I don't think there's going to be any shortage of actually having people want to be on that committee. I think the challenge is going to be making sure that it is workable numbers wise. And we don't want the same people sitting on the same committees all the time. So it would be nice to get representation from other areas that we haven't heard as much.
Questions? Once again, thank you both for the presentation. A lot of work done by a lot of people here. And obviously something that continues to be extremely important. And I think once again, speak to the board and say we will look forward to updates on the next steps that you've identified have been completed. And so just thanks again for all the hard work. It's very, very important. And leadership, not just within our organization, but seen outside of our organization. Leadership that the very few service shows. So thanks very much.
Thank you.
Chief, I don't think I need to ask you to introduce Deputy Chief Allen. The accountant committee always likes to update on statistical reports. So Deputy Allen, walk us through that.
Thanks, Chair. I want to wait till Victoria loads it up. Thanks for running the PowerPoint, Victoria. And behind me, everybody knows Nicole Lees, our manager of our records unit, who is the brains behind this presentation. Next slide, please. So the data that we're going to talk about today, just want to let the board know we continue to improve our data quality and our interpretation. We're getting better at it every quarter, and the data that you'll see in this presentation is actually coming straight from our niche RMS system. Okay. Here is a list of the items we're going to discuss as we always do, including some notable events that we're really proud to share with the board. I want to note that each slide includes a first quarter and 5-year comparison for each group, as well as a first quarter 5-year average comparison. Our calls for service has seen fewer, but when you look at the 5-year average at 16,292, it's insignificant for the first quarter. It's something we watch, and we look at the longer terms. You'll see for the last 5 quarters, we're pretty much on par with where we've been. Occurrences and violations. This really is just a slide to show demonstrate the differences between criminal violations versus charge and arrest. I'll remind the board that violations are any contravention of a provincial or federal statute, and occurrences generated versus calls for service. They're all very different things, and I'll speak to that a little bit later. Our PONs are definitely down. That's showing in the last 5 quarters, as well as our 5-year average. This is a direct result of the redeployment of some of the personnel that we have discussed with the board as we fill vacancies due to some of the mandatory training, WSIB, and some of those people that have been redeployed are actually from our community safety, wellbeing, and road safety units. One of the highlights I want to bring is the Alternative Response Initiative. Inspector Dusnap spoke about this, I believe, at the last board meeting. So our alternate response unit, which works in-house, generally online, through the phone, et cetera, they've been collaborating with our general assignments and our street crime unit to assist investigations, freeing them up to work on the more heavy caseloads. And our team has been really successful in doing a lot of the behind the scenes work and supporting those units. I want to show that last year we laid 91 criminal charges. In the first quarter, we've already laid 61. So we are taking these complaints seriously. Mr. Khan, I think we talked about this last time. I wanted to bring this back to you. And I want to say to date, our charges are already at 81. So we're still rocking forward pretty quickly. This is a graph that shows the board when we started online reporting in 2018 to where we are in 2022. This graph is a 250% increase in the calls that we're doing online. In fact, we are now, we have been doing fraud occurrences. That has been added to our online reporting system. So we are now able to do all the administrative investigation work behind the scenes in the ARU, and it's been very successful. I do want to point out, though, that this 250% increase is only for the online reporting. It doesn't actually reflect all the work that they're doing to support the street crime and front line. A couple of the highlights that the ARU has been able to help out with. We did work with the street crime unit. They completed general reports, collected statements, gathered video evidence, and on February 10th of this year, 2 accused were identified and arrested. They were charged with 51 criminal offenses, which relate to the catalytic converter theft. So that is an impact on the stats that we report. So I wanted to bring that to your attention. And also LCBO thefts. We had a rash between the end of December and middle of January at various LCBOs in Barrie. Our ARU members coordinated the investigation. They were also responsible for identifying the accused, and a male was charged with 13 counts of theft under $5,000. We talked before about the adult pre-charge diversion program based on restorative justice and diversion of adult persons charged with certain offenses to do the restorative justice program instead of going through the very taxing cost of going through criminal trials. You can see here that it shows the bulk of the 49 diversions that we've done. 33 of them are theft under. I do want to note that this is not specific to the first quarter, but actually is to date. And our dashboards actually don't break it down that way, and that's something that we're working on. Oh, one thing, sorry, I want to mention back on the diversion. The board will recall the Barrie Native Friendship Center. Charmaine spoke about a real good success story and a touching personal account. So we are getting feedback from our partners and the community that in many cases that this diversion program is doing what it's supposed to. Some notable numbers from the Community Safety Wellbeing team launched in the first quarter of 2022. The high harm team made 11 arrests and 44 arrests in March alone. Of note, and definitely impacts our criminal statistics, one investigation resulted in a quantity of drugs and a firearm seized, and 3 persons charged. That was a combined total of 37 criminal code charges, and it's a tribute to the deployment model that we're trying with the high harm team to the areas of concern. Crimes against persons. We're seeing that it's up a little bit. Major contributor is assault. But again, when you look at the longer average, the difference there is not something to be overly concerned about, and we'll continue to watch that. Property crime, the contributors, number one contributor being theft under 5,000. We spoke about that. This is an opportunity to talk about violations versus charges. So theft under is a federal a contravention of a federal statute. So that counts as a violation when we report that, but it doesn't always end up in a charge. And I just spoke about the 33 theft under diversions that we did. So it will offset some of these numbers. Doesn't mean it's all going to be criminal charges, and they've actually been dealt with by way of diversion. Drug offenses are definitely low, as we saw with the PONs. We recognize, and we've said in previous presentations, that drug-related charges for the most part are a result of proactive activity. Given the deployment of some of our members of our community safety wellbeing team to supplement the front lines, this is something that should not be unexpected. And when we give our next presentation, we'll have a look at what those numbers say. Criminal traffic violations, number one contributor being operation while impaired, dipped a little bit. Again, some of those things are proactive in nature, but the comparison when you look at the 5-year average is very, very close on the bottom right corner of that slide, and we'll continue to watch that as well. Other criminal code violations, again, this is not an area that Statistics Canada uses to for their analytical purposes, but it's a big part of our own analysis, resource planning, and community programs. So these violations are down, and they tend to be down, but you will notice that they are also, oh, sorry, I said the wrong part. I'm on the wrong one. I apologize. Other criminal code violations are captured by Stats Canada, and we're watching the top 3 contributors and the 5th contributor, all related to criminal justice administration. It's down, we spoke about it before, definitely as a result of the COVID courts and the way bench warrants were processed, and it doesn't look like we're going to be see a huge difference in this, and it should level out. Even though the courts are reopening, it's just the way the courts are asking us to administer these offenses. Thank you. And these are the miscellaneous ones I spoke about out of turn with my apologize. So these are not used by Stats Canada. They're used by our service for analysis, resource planning, and community collaborations. It's a big part of what we do. We get a lot of these calls. So although Stats Canada doesn't use them for analysis, they're very important to us. And subject to any questions from the board, that's the presentation.
Questions from the board? Councilor Thompson.
Thanks, through the chair. Just the one number is the provincial offenses, and I know that we've spoken in previous meetings about redeploying to try to help with the forces, but is there any hope that we'll be able to get back to like a full traffic unit and stuff? And saying that, just with the weather changing, is there any plan on the force doing the blitz on the loud cars that we did? I think it was 2 years ago. That was very well received by the public.
Yeah, I can answer all of that, Councillor Thompson. For one, yes, the traffic unit will be getting back to where it was in short order, quite honestly. We have 4 members redeployed right now. The other thing that our unit is working on, we have a 25-year-old historical fail to remain fatal accident that is being investigated by the investigative side of that team. So that draws a lot of resources in, notwithstanding the other types of serious collisions that they need to investigate. Further to that, the catalytic converter, the noisy muffler campaign, we are planning one, and we're going to do a blitz as well. There's actually training going on in-house right now from our in-house subject matter expert, educating other people on the platoons, so it won't be just a traffic unit thing. So we are trying to spread the word, and this training is actually quite extensive and thorough.
Thank you.
Thanks, Deputy. You mentioned about the alternative response initiative and seeing some numbers that, surged. You basically had already in 2022, 61 criminal charges laid. Correct my thinking. I seem to remember hearing something about, and this might have been from Deputy Johnson, I'm not sure, the fact that we have more is not a sign that there's more criminal activity going on. It's just that we have, the way you've redeployed your personnel, we're able to be proactive and we're able to catch more. Is that fair? Or?
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Khan. They definitely, some of these occurrences would have been investigated by people on the road driving cars to investigate these offenses. So now that we're able to do it online, COVID really changed the world. People are comfortable reporting through the phone and through other means. We're able to do those investigations and don't have to be out on location to do the bulk of those investigations. And I think from our perspective, what we want to share with the community is that they can be assured that their matters being reported online or through the ARU are being taken seriously and are being fully investigated and not just being loaded in there for insurance purposes into our database, which, may have been their thinking, many years ago.
We might not see immediate results, but you are doing data collection, I presume. For example, the LCBO case and the catalytic, you're collecting the data so that you can eventually try and put the puzzle pieces together. So you might not see same day results, but the public, should have confidence that you're using that data still, right?
Yeah, the public can have confidence that we're doing it. And for instance, the catalytic converter thefts, that is where the ARU is supplementing our frontline investigators, therefore freeing them up, which is the purpose of alternative response, right? So it's not the stats that I want you to see that we're catching the crime, because we're going to catch that crime anyway. What I want you to see is that we're doing it better. We're doing it with proper resources. We're being more sustainable by doing it in this way.
I have one more question, if I might. Sure. Thanks. One of your final slides was with regard to the court processing of cases, et cetera. Excuse me, have we seen COVID dismissals basically just inundated court systems and they kind of just didn't get to some, or some were dismissed as a matter of they weren't priorities to pursue? Or no, we're still going to go through all of them?
It's going through. It's a whether or not warrants end up in criminal charges, because when a warrant is issued, it's not necessarily always turning into a criminal charge. It's a warrant to bring the person back to the jurisdiction of the court. And in the old days, it would be an automatic charge. There was a bit of a reprieve, and people are, as long as they're coming back to court, they resume the matter as it was if it wasn't in a COVID time.
There's no time, like you didn't get your trial within a certain period of time, or
all those things still exist, but we haven't seen any trends there.
Okay. Thank you. Appreciate it. Thanks, Chair.
Deputy, one question on the pre-charge diversion program. I personally am a major supporter of it. Is there any way now or in the future to measure the success of the program? I understand. Is there any follow-up, I guess, or is there a required follow-up?
Yeah, I think there is some, and I think Deputy Johnson would be really happy to answer that. The study, I'll give him the credit. He was very much responsible for the initial launch of that.
So, Chair, and we are looking at the measures of success for the pre-charge diversion, but what the actual measure of success is not just captured in the number of diversions. We actually are working with Elizabeth Fry and with the Barrie Native Friendship Center and the groups that we want to see involved in it in terms of a victim-based survey as a result. Because if, and we always deal with the one end, the criminal side or the offender side, we're actually looking at a victim-focused response. So does the victim feel heard? Do they feel vindicated, or at least their matter addressed? And what are their perceptions of the actual experience? Because if we find that it increases their trust in the system, they feel better about the contact with the criminal justice system, that's the true measure of success for us. Because historically, we've only measured it by offense. But if we have less victimization in the community, as a society, we win. It's not a win-loss, but it improves what we're doing and why we're doing it. I mean, yes, we are, and that is well underway in terms of Elizabeth Fry collecting those stats in consultation with our organizational researcher. But anonymized. Let me be clear, anonymized.
I'm glad to hear that. Program may have success. Glad we're moving forward with it. Any other questions on this? Seeing none, Dr. Allen, once again, thank you very much for your report. And you know, in my 3.5 years, I've seen the data accumulation, improving and improving and improving. Thank you, Chief, for that.
Thank you.
2 items were in the consent agenda, provided in advance, public complaints and budget variance. Motion to receive those items. Mr. Khan? Councilor Thompson? Is there any item that anyone would like to hold or any questions for the Chief? Seeing none, those in favor? Thank you. In our package, there was reappointments. Motion to approve the reappointment of Special Constables Boucher, McBride, Crawford, and Roy. Ms. Khan, those in favor? Thank you. Also in our package, a motion to approve the appointment of new auxiliaries, Thorne, Fran, Kennedy, and Hoover. All those in favor? Thank you. And I think, Chief, it's back to you to, I think, reintroduce Inspector Burke to us to go over our annual report with respect to public complaints.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. Inspector Burke, back at the podium. Thank you.
Thanks very much. I know everyone had received a report, so I'll go through the report, hit some highlights, and then definitely open for questions at the end, just to clarify anything that's in the report. So I will start off by saying the numbers that we're reporting in our report regards to the public complaints, we are very much in line with other services in the province. This is the same numbers that other services are seeing and the same similar experiences of our comparatives for that. So public complaints can be broken down into 3 categories. Policy complaints, that's the rules and standards of a police service that guide how an officer delivers police service. Service complaints, how effectively and efficiently a service performs its duties. And then finally, conduct complaints. That's the behavior of the officer. And that's where the bulk of our complaints come in. In regards to that, we did not receive any policy complaints. We received 1 service complaint that was resolved by informal resolution, and I'll go over the resolutions in a bit. The conduct complaints, there were a total of 95, and we'll talk a little bit about I'll do the comparators. 57 were not accepted by ORPRD. The term we use is screened out. 37 conduct complaints were accepted. 36 were investigated by our service. 1 was investigated by an outside service for that. There are some resolution options for that. 1 is the early resolution program. It was implemented in 2020. It allows for an exchange of perspectives and dialogue between the parties to a complaint. The goal is to, exactly what it says, is to arrive at a mutually agreeable early resolution process. In 2021, we had 3 complaints that were handled by early resolution, in which all parties involved were agreed. Local resolution allows a less serious complaint to be resolved directly with the BPS outside of the OIPRD process. So that is, we're made aware of an issue, and we handle it at the service itself. It doesn't go to the OIPRD. So that's the local resolution. Many times we find you're talking platoon NCOs, the duty staff sergeant. They're the ones that are dealing with those. PSU also gets involved. So there was 1 local resolution in 2021. Excuse me. 21, we also saw withdrawals. There were 5 public complaints that were eventually withdrawn for various reasons. And there is no, I would say there is no trend or pattern to that. Each were withdrawn on their own merit. In regards to that, informal resolution is a process option for less serious allegations of misconduct to be resolved during the OIPRD complaint process, there were 10 public conduct complaints resolved by way of informal resolution. Again, that's on the consent of the complainant, the officer, and the service for that. So as for investigations, investigations require PSU. If we don't get if there's no withdrawal or there's no other type of resolution, the Professional Standards Unit then conducts an entire investigation. These are very extensive investigations. The Barrie Police, I'm proud to say, have a very good reputation with the OIPRD, and that is due to the extensiveness, quality, and content of our investigations. We put a lot of effort into it because we know the product that when we send it to the OIPRD, they review it. If it's then requested to be reviewed again by the complainant, that is what we rest our case on. We do have a very good reputation with the OIPRD in regards to the quality, and that just goes to the quality investigators that we have in the unit. So in 2021, there were 14 public complaints related to conduct that required a full investigation. 12 public complaints of police conduct were deemed unsubstantiated, and 2 were determined to be substantiated, and that was of a less serious nature. The director concurred with the investigating findings of all our reports that we submitted. And again, I go back and I'm going to reference the quality of reports. We take the time and the effort, and that is exactly why we do that. Is we want the director to concur with our findings. There's currently one investigation under review by the OIPRD as a result of a request by the complainant, and we have yet to hear the outcome of that. The investigations referred to another service. And 21, there was one investigation involving BPS members that was referred to another service as they were the primary service involved. There's a number of reasons to have it referred to another service. Investigations on behalf of another service, OIPRD does have the option to assign Barrie Police Service investigations that don't involve Barrie Police Service members or the service. We had none of those in 2021. So dispositions and comparisons. So as we talked about, 95 public complaints in 21. 57 were deemed to be frivolous, vexatious, or not in the public interest, and therefore were screened out. Of the 38 remaining complaints, 1 was a service complaint dealt with by way of informal resolution, as we spoke, and the 37 complaints were categorized as conduct complaints. This is a 19% increase over the number of complaints in 2020, which actually is a total of 6 complaints. So, and you'll see on the graph included in there, you'll see the number of comparators. These conduct complaints relate to allegations of discreditable conduct, unlawful, unnecessary exercise authority, and neglect of duty. So there are charts included in there, and again, it's proportional. I would draw your attention to the total number of complaints as they've increased throughout the years. Then I would take you and draw your attention to the number of complaints not accepted by the OIPRD. They have actually increased at a greater rate than the total number of complaints. And again, that is a trend that other services are seeing across the province for that. So as we talked about, total complaints received, 60% of the complaints were not accepted by the OIPRD compared to 54% in 2020. So as I said, even though the numbers are higher, the numbers not accepted are actually higher themselves. So it's relative. Final dispositions, 12 were unsubstantiated. 2 were substantiated. I also note that the effort put into the informal resolution, of which 10 were informally resolved. So there's still an effort put into reaching that informal resolution. It's the investigators working with the complainant, working with the officer, and coming to a common ground. There is a lot of effort put into that, but once they reach a mutual understanding, from our perspective, we think it's a much better outcome because there is some mutual understanding, both of the process from the officer and from the complainant in regards to that. Police Service Act hearings. So there were no instances derived from public complaints where PSA conduct charges were initiated by the BPS against its members. There were 2 matters that were concluded in 21. One had been initiated in 2018 There were additional charges in 2019 and 2020. At the conclusion of that, the member resigned, which concluded the hearing process. The other matter that was dealt with in 21, it had been initiated in 2020. A second charge was added in 2021. The member acknowledged the misconduct and accepted the adjudicator's disposition. There is presently one matter for 2020 ongoing. The professional standards unit, looking at these numbers and obviously analyzing the types of complaints, take every opportunity they can to present to the members of the service in regards to trends and also giving advice in regards to that. They've presented to the NCO training, to every session. They've also gone to every platoon and speak to the members in regards to that. And it's actually I participated in two of those platoon briefings, and actually it generated very positive discussion from the members on the floor, and the same thing for the NCO training. Questions were asked, clarifications for that, because again, our first level of supervision, very, very important to the conduct of the officers that are out dealing with the public, for them to understand some of the trends and issues that professional standards is seeing. That's a preventative measure for them to work with when they're supervising their members of since the implementation of body-worn cameras in September of 21, the professional standards have observed several benefits with not only the resolution of public complaints, but with the expedited manner in which SIU investigations have been conducted. We anticipate now moving through 22, and by the end of 22, we'll have some good data and analysis, I think, to link to that body-worn camera. The body-worn camera use, and I think the outcome. Again, body-worn cameras, the presence of them, not only instills stability in the public that we're dealing with, but it also instills stability in the officers when they're dealing with the public. So it's accountability on both sides. I can tell you, when the SIU invoked their mandate, their first request, at least the Barrie Police Service, because they know that we've deployed body-worn cameras, send us your body-worn camera footage. And we have found that it's expediting the process with the special investigations unit. I can tell you also some of the withdrawals were affected by the presence of body-worn camera footage. So for the SIU, 9 occurrences in 2021, 8 were concluded. The SIU determined there were no grounds of evidence to proceed, and 1 was terminated as it found the police interaction had nothing to do with the actual incident for that. So overall, the professional standards unit, we're not noting any noticeable trends other than the OIPRD complaints and the numbers increasing. Now, on the face, we would be concerned, but we would compare ourselves to the other services in the province. All services are experiencing the same numbers for that, and all services are experiencing increased number of OIPRD complaints that aren't accepted. So we're all a little bit in the same boat. There is some new legislation certainly on the horizon, the Comprehensive Ontario Police Services Act, the Community Safety and Policing Act. We're anticipating, some changes for that. The PSA is long overdue for an overhaul. This is the anticipation. The SIU Act is already in place. We have adapted to that. So again, knowing this is on the horizon, the professional standards unit, myself and Staff Sergeant Fearon regularly participate in the OACP Professional Standards Committee. This very topic is discussed at every meeting with the anticipated changes on the horizon and how to forecast those and how to early adopters is what we want to be, so we're not behind people. That also includes again policy and procedures fall under executive services. We've been updating our procedures as legislation has been updated, so we want to maintain our policies and procedures at a current state in regards to that. So I'll leave that. I'll open it to any questions.
Please.
Thanks through you, Chair. Inspector Burke, thanks for all the work and stuff. As a board member, I believe this is an extremely important part of this, and it's the accountability. And, this is what instills the trust with, the public and stuff, and seeing all this and how you investigate how serious of a matter this is. Out of the 95 public complaints, and sorry to put you on the spot, but just, out of the 95, how many of them are not the person with the interaction of the police? Do you have that number?
No, I'd have to, I don't have that. I'd have to dig further into the OIPRD statistics.
Yeah, and I apologize for
No,
putting you on the
that's
spot.
a good question. No, that's something we have not included in there, but I'll see if I can find that out and I will get back to the board with that. So,
Just that, for my own, I get a speeding ticket, I don't like the officer, even though I was the one driving, but it would be if somebody, from the public, I would love to know.
I'll definitely look into that.
Thank you for the presentation and all the information.
I'd just like to make one comment about the Inspector Burke. When the general public sees that 60% plus were screened out, that the OIPRD was established in 2009 as an independent, neutral, arm's-length agency of the Ontario Ministry of the Attorney General. So for the public, I don't want the perception, we as a service screen those out. An independent third party screen those 60+% of the complaints were screened out by a third party, not this service.
Very
Just wanted
accurate.
to highlight that to the members of the public who may be joining us. Any other questions? Inspector Burke, thank you very, very much again for your report, and appreciate all the time you considered. Thank you, sir.
Thanks very much, and I'll get that information and I'll put it back to the chief. Thank you.
Chief, brief update for the board, please.
Thank you very much. We'll just get the presentation placed on the screen for the board and the community to see. So as it comes up, the first slide that you will see is members of the Barrie Police Service attending the Ontario Police Memorial on May the 1st down in Toronto at Queen's Park. And I will say this is the first time in 3 years that we've been able to participate in that. So the 2 years that we paused, we hosted a very, very public health safe event with limited attendees, but it was very nice to meet with other police services across the province to pay respect to officers who lost their lives in the line of duty. And we continue to say that they are heroes in life, not death. When you go to the next slide, this is something traditionally we have seen in regular chief's updates, and it speaks to our calls for service in the last month that are generated by our computer automated dispatcher, our CAD system. I won't get into much details because we've had the opportunity to hear Deputy Allen speak to the overall statistical reporting in much more depth than this snapshot of top 20 calls for service. They were slightly below what we saw last year in April, but I think when we look at a broader lens over the months and years, we're seeing a slight increase in our calls for service the last couple of years. I'd like to take the opportunity to highlight 2 very serious investigations that occurred over the last month. We go back to April the 30th at approximately 9:40 p.m. The Barrie Police Service, along with first responders, being fire and emergency services for the city of Barrie, along with the County of Simcoe paramedics, we responded to a residential area for a report of a stabbing. And we located a 16-year-old youth, and this individual was transported to hospital for very serious injuries, and a thorough investigation commenced. And we have arrested and charged 4 youths in this incident, 3 16-year-olds and 1 17-year-old are now facing significant criminal charges. And they include attempt to commit murder, aggravated assault, and assault with a weapon. And we are continuing to monitor the condition of the victim in this matter and provide support to the victim and his family through victim services. The second investigation began last month also on April the 17th. Barrie Police Service received information from witnesses that a male had been assaulted and forced into a vehicle. And it was through the investigation that followed and with the assistance of police services from the Greater Toronto area, it was determined that a 26-year-old victim had been forcibly abducted, assaulted, and threatened. And back in late April, we arrested a 32-year-old and a 35-year-old from Mississauga. And then this month on the 16th of May, a 32-year-old male was also arrested who was involved in this incident. And once again, very serious criminal charges: kidnapping, assault with a weapon, forcible confinement, uttering threats, robbery, extortion, and possession of a weapon for dangerous purposes. So I would like to say that this event was a targeted incident and there was no threat to public safety in these incidences. I'd like to say that spring is sprung. We now are looking after Kempenfelt Bay, the Barrie Police Service, and our marine vehicles are ready for our 2022 boating season. So our marine officers are specially trained and they are patrolling the waters of Kempenfelt Bay, ensuring that boaters are following the rules and people are safe out on our waters, and we're able to respond to emergency calls for service when necessary. And earlier this week, members of our emergency support unit participated in joint training with our Georgian Bay Search and Rescue team. This is annual training that is very imperative to learn skills required to effectively search for missing persons, for example. Would also like to highlight, we're in the midst of Police Week, and that runs until May the 21st. And this week celebrates and recognizes police services working with our members of our community to look at community safety and well-being. And this Police Week is supported both at the provincial level and the national level with the associations and chiefs of police. And how did we do with the Barrie Police Service? We launched it on Sunday with an open house. I would call it open doors. It was able to bring members of the community into our headquarters, and we had guided tours. We had the opportunity for people to go through some of our specialized equipment and our vehicles and get a glimpse into our programs that we offer in collaboration with our community, whether it was Citizens on Patrol, our recruiting, our Safety Patrollers program, our Project Lifesaver, and many of you know our mascot Blue. He was quite a hit. And today our members are set up, or sorry, tomorrow our members are going to be at Georgian College between 10 and 4, and at Lambton Lane Community Center from 3:30 to 8 p.m. So to members of the community, I invite you to those locations. Please stop by, say hello, ask some questions, and learn a little bit more about the Barrie Police Service. Also, if we go back to April, we had our corporate communications with Jenna Mays and Peter Leon assisted in the delivery of our media relations officers course that brought together police personnel from not only Ontario, but Alberta and New Brunswick to learn best practices or good practices in connecting with the community. And today at 10 a.m., the Barrie Police launched our first podcast with our first episode. And the podcast is available through our YouTube and discusses our community safety and well-being unit. And you will hear from Jamie Westcott, Sergeant Marsh, Inspector Gates on using our harm harm score indexing to create a safer community, and looking at how we work to with our community organizations to respond to items and calls for service in our community to ensure that we have an effective response with our community partners. And last month, I had the honor of presenting the Chief of Police recognition coins to two of our Special Olympians, Nick Cunningham and Jason Hallman, who are both multi-sports competitors and continuously help support Special Olympics by participating in policing events like our torch run, our puck drop at our local rink in the south end of our city, and my favorite is the polar plunge, and both are very brave and participate in that. So I'd like to publicly thank Nick and Jason for their contributions to our community, and it's really about their positive attitudes. They're really second to none. So it's just a small token of our appreciation from the Barrie Police Service with the Chief's coin. And some of you may recognize the scene there. Our board members, foreign and civilian members, attended the Tender Hearts Gala in support of the Season Center for Grieving Children on May the 2nd. And both deputies attended the Eid festivities to help celebrate with the Muslim community the holy month of Ramadan concluding. And we had our Red Dress Day, and I hope the board members had the opportunity to have a look at our beautiful display in our front lobby, showing support that reflects and remembers the missing and emergent Indigenous women, girls, and two-spirited people. We continue to raise awareness around gender violence, and both the deputies and myself were invited to the Barrie Native Friendship Center to participate in the National Moose Hide campaign with a gathering on May the 12th down at Meridian Place. And we were able to attend this event with Sergeant Major Cheryl Gervais from Treaty 3 Police Service. And these is just a selection of some of the photos at the event, which was very enlightening and goes to the awareness in our community and within our service of the challenges within the Indigenous community. And the last slide on the left-hand side, you will see the wellness fair that was conducted on May the 7th, where the Barrie Police Services partnered with the public library to bring over 20 community organizations together. And it was a fabulous day. We had great weather, and it was valuable information that was shared within the community, and it all supported the mental health week in our organization. And as we see the community opening up, we were able to participate in the annual McHappy Day in support of our local Royal Victoria Hospital Foundation and the Ronald McDonald House. And that is the update this month for May of what has taken place in the last few weeks since our last meeting in April.
Thanks, Chief. Are there any questions of the chief or community concerns? I have one, and I asked this not because of in one case, the famous individual I was involved, but it's all over the news, the carjackings in the GTA. Have we seen any evidence in Barrie of that at this point?
At this point, we are monitoring it because it is impacting several services and communities within the province of Ontario, but we haven't seen a trend here in the city of Barrie, but we're very cautious and remind individuals to be aware of their surroundings when they're involved on the roads.
Since the randomness, I think that concerns the public. But, thank you.
Thank you.
Our Our next board meeting is June 16th. And a motion to adjourn our meeting today. Mr. Khan, Smith. Thank you, everyone. Thanks to, we're still on the air.